All right, welcome to class. Let's get started. Today we're going to talk about collaborative leadership, the role of a team leader. Give me your synopsis, 2 to 4 minutes maximum. So speaking of maximum, that's all right. Go ahead.
Sorry, I did not take any of that time to look over what I wrote, but
it's okay. It was very engaging listening to the critique of different, off-Broadway musicals that have gone to, film.
So
that was before class, so it is literally during class right now. No, before. Oh.
It was before this part.
Yeah, it was before.
But it was the time when Max should have been preparing for this exact moment in class, but instead he was listening to your critique of cats and Hugh Jackman's muscles or whatever you were talking about. Okay, all right. Anyway, that's on video. All right, Max, go ahead.
All right, so this chapter was about the role of a team leader, and one of the things that I found interesting about this was talking about the collaborative style of leadership. And I think, a lot of times when you think of leadership, you just kind of immediately think of the stigma of a leader holding absolute control over the team. But this chapter was talking about how it's actually, in many cases, it's better to give some of that power to the team members, and they actually are more invested in the team actually functions better together. And so the chapter just kind of walked through what that looked like in 3 different stages as the educator, coach, and facilitator. Educator, where the leader would be teaching the other team members how to handle, how to respond to things. The coach is where he's a little more on the sidelines and still kind of walking the team members through as they handle things, but still letting them do a lot of the legwork. And then facilitator is where he's really just standing back and just making sure the whole process is running smoothly, but the whole team is functioning well on its own. And then the chapter also talked about how to respond if the employer or the leader is part of the problem as far as solving conflict. Sorry, I lost my spot. Talking about how to approach them using outside resources, and even being upfront and direct while still trying to maintain that relationship. In a couple of the articles that I found, they described collaborative leadership between different governmental agencies. And describing, one of the ones that I found talked about 3 major obstacles for collaborative leadership are transactional rather than relational mindset of the American culture. The way the agencies are structured within the government can kind of pit them against each other rather than encouraging collaboration. And then, what was the last one? Maybe I just put the 2 down. And so there are significant obstacles that need to be overcome, and some of that is just the way that the team or the different agencies that are working together are structured. But overall, collaboration, if it can be done, is a much more efficient and powerful way of leading a team.
A lot of organizations inadvertently, they're trying to create a competitive structure amongst departments or individuals, but they inadvertently create departments that build, you think of the agricultural term of silo. They basically withhold their resources, their knowledge, their energy. It's like, I'm only going to work on my job. You're only going to work in this department. You're not going to help another department get their job done. And what they do is it ends up cutting the productivity of the organization to the point where the marketing team could be winning, but if the production team is losing, the whole company is going to lose eventually. So at some point, you have to have collaboration between departments. Good. Okay, Alyssa.
So I have 2 things that I think, 3 things actually that really stood out to me, but the first one that stood out to me was the idea that, this is what it said, I'll just read it, was effective teams are successful because they take advantage of the complementary knowledge and skills of team members. Everyone on the team contributes something different to team performance. So something I thought of was just like, as the leader, you shouldn't think of your team members as kind of just being like extra people that you have to deal with or something, or, you know, I have to delegate or I have to take care of them and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. But like everybody on your team is there because they have something that they can contribute. So just thinking about just how can, as you as a leader or whatever, help move them and help them see how they can contribute, help inspire them to be able to do their best and want to contribute to do well. The second thing I noticed was that just the idea, it said the concept of leadership to be taught and practice is that leadership is not something located in a position, but instead a process that can be shared with others. So I thought it kind of went with the other one, but just thinking about like, you don't just, most people think you like get hired as the manager or something, but really every position that you're in should be a leadership position. Like to some degree, you should be willing to step up to the plate and lead others if necessary. So as the leader or manager, it's your job to make sure that you're equipping those underneath you, even if they're like cashiers or something. You should be equipping them to know how to lead other people well, so that if a situation does come up where they need to step up to the plate and be able to take charge of something, they'll know how to do it. And then the last thing that really stuck out to me was that people generally are willing to listen, take advice, and make needed changes if they see the source of such advice as being both authoritative and caring. So I was just thinking about how this is true, like even where I work, if I don't feel like my manager is approachable, when she tells me to do something, I'm less motivated, I guess, to do it. Like I'll do it because I don't want to, like it's my job, but I'm not as apt to doing it like with a good attitude or like doing my best at it. I'll just do like the bare minimum to get it done. But like if I can tell that they really care about their job, they really care about the company, they care about me as a person, they know what they're doing, but they're also being like, hey, you need to do this, but they also are willing to invest in you, then it's a lot more likely that you'll get people to come to you for help or to just do their best for something.
Good. I like that on your first point, the word complementary. I think it's a great word for the way to view members of a team, you know, an organization, a team. If you've ever seen, there's a phenomenon, especially in the US, your child that's 5 years old, their best friend at church or school is playing in a soccer league. The best friend's parent says, hey, your child should come with my child. They can play soccer together. So you go buy cleats and socks and they run a little uniform. It's just so cute. One season later, the head of the soccer club says, we need some parent coach volunteers. You're like, well, I want to be a good parent, so I'll do this. In the first practice, you don't have to do it. Second practice, the coach doesn't show up and you get a call, hey, can you run practice? You don't know how to run practice. So you put all the kids out on the field and say, just go play. Just here's a couple soccer balls, just go play. And they don't learn anything. I mean, maybe they have fun, I guess, but you're not really coaching them, right? You're not really leading them. You're kind of just corralling them. You're kind of just filling time. And that's kind of a silly illustration, though, of what happens with a lot of leaders. They're placed in a position and they're not ready. They don't understand how to train or to do the things that you guys mentioned, educate, coach, facilitate. And they just have a lot of activity. And they're not looking at each participant as a complementary member of a team that could actually do something. So they just kind of keep the activity going, but they're not really teaching it. So, Emmy.
Kind of touching on what Max was talking about, just about like the different types of roles that a leader can have in the teams, like an educator, coach, and facilitator. I think one thing that stuck out to me is that, like, especially the facilitator portion of the chapter, talking about how you have to also be willing to like take that step back to like the coach and try and like, you know, just reformat things, like just not be afraid to take a step backwards, because sometimes there might be need for like more clarification, better communication amongst the team in order to like get everything running smoothly and everything, stuff like that. And I think one thing that I really liked when they're talking about, especially the coach section of it, was that they should be asking questions more rather than giving answers, because if you just keep feeding spoon feeding everyone answers, they're not really going to learn. They're just going to be like, okay, this is what they said. So, but I think asking questions and having them like critically think about why they're doing something and why they're not doing something and everything like that in order to just see where their thought process is really helpful for the team, so that it's not just, you know, they told me to do this, this is why I'm doing it. They don't have any reason behind it. And one of my articles that I found, what did it say? Oh, going along with like the coaching and educating part of the chapter as well, it says, if a self-directed team is going to be successful, the leader must ensure that the participants possess the right combinations of skills and abilities. So just being able to teach each person on the team what their responsibilities are and how to do it well and efficiently, yeah, is like really important so that the team can flow well. And also like not just limiting their abilities to their specific job, but also maybe like teaching them how to do this part of the job, or a different aspect of a different section of the project or something, just in order to give them a little more variety.
Yeah, I think the first part that you talked about ties into your article really well. The maturity it takes for a leader to be willing to step back is hard, right? Because, you know, by use in English, you know, the word lead means to be out in front. So you kind of have this implied from the day you become a leader that you're out in front of everything. And so it takes a little bit of humility, a little bit of maturity to know when to say, wait a minute, maybe we need to look at this from a different angle, or maybe we're going down the wrong path. And then think about how secure of a person you have to be to relinquish some of that ability to speak up or to speak into a decision. You know, you have to be pretty secure in yourself, because what if their input is different than the way you were going to go with it? So, but the whole spoon feeding thing, I believe that even about some college classes. I know some college classes, you just got to learn how to, you know, what number goes in what line in accounting, or, you know, what year did this happen, or, you know, what does this Greek word mean? Those are things, those are content, or it's a skill. But I'm blessed with being able to teach mostly classes where it can be that, you know, if you get your critical thinking cap on, you're going to learn a lot more from talking through it like this than if I was just to give you a straight through lecture the whole time. So not all classes can be like that. And the other classes are super valuable as well. But I like that. I like looking at teaching organizational leadership as a way of practicing organizational leadership as best I can. I mean, I'm not perfect at it at all. So, Katie.
One part of the chapter that I really enjoyed was the part where it talks about the different types of team leaders. Not like the facilitator part, but more the how people view the leaders. So there's like the boss subordinate relationship, which is how most people think of a leader, like we call them Walmart kind of situation. Your upper level boss, and they just tell everybody what to do, and you go do it and you're done. That's like not, so the book said that's not the most common type of leadership. The most common is the, it's like the team and the team leader need to have more of a like actual team than a boss subordinate. That gets a lot more done. And then one of the articles I found kind of talked about that a little more. Talked about the 10 most popular leadership styles and how there's two different categories. There's employee-oriented and then production-oriented. And I think the boss subordinate kind of leadership goes more with the product. They just want to get a job done. They have a system. It's set in stone. That's how we do things. Whereas the employee-oriented, it reaps the same kind of results, but it focuses more on the employees and how they can better produce better results, you know, and more efficiently and effectively for both the team and the product.
Great. Someone shows a YouTube video. I think it was it for this class where you guys had to like select videos? No, that was for the current issues class. There's a popular recent TED Talk video about doing your employees as your ultimate customers, right? So like you're trying to make sure that you're connecting with them. I think the term team leader, it already implies that the leader is part of the team. Like they're actually a member of the team. You know, they're actually out there. They're not separate. So they're a team leader and maybe a team member, but they're both on the team. So it's probably a great way to just always emphasize, just even with those semantics, that the leader's never above the team. They're just they have a greater responsibility than they're on the team. Krista.
Okay, there were two things that I kind of thought were interesting about the chapter, two main things. One, a team leader's role is always shifting and growing. It's not going to be the same kind of thing all the time. Going from like the educator to the coach to the facilitator, whatever that order is. The leader needs to be flexible and teachable. And kind of going along with that, the second thing, he needs to be trained properly. I thought that was really important. And he needs to be training his team members, but he also needs to be going to be a good leader and knowledgeable. So the articles I chose focused on the training aspect of it. And one of the articles I thought was really interesting. It was about Boise State, and in this program, they're getting the university is basically getting paid to train their students, the top tier, training them in this field, and the students are basically graduating with jobs already because they're being trained so well and they're like top of the field. And I think that is really important, and I think in our classes we can learn a lot how to train people.
Yeah, excellent. There's a lot of, if you read a lot of leadership books, you'll read about how just because someone has been trained as a leader doesn't necessarily make them a good leader, because it's kind of like just because someone has parents, they're automatically going to be good parents. You actually have to train them. I think use the word like good training or whatever, but you basically want to pass on good leadership skills, right? So that good leadership is perpetuated. If you have poor leadership, then poor leadership is going to be perpetuated. You can see this again. Go back to the sports world, because I did reffing for a couple of years. So I did this like U17 and just below the professional level of reffing for a couple of years in soccer. And what I saw over the years was they'll have like a terrible coach, screams at kids, calls them names, threatens them, whatever. And then those kids become coaches of like junior teams, and they have bad habits as leaders as coaches. They imitate, and probably, those people that are the screamers and stuff, they probably were coached that way as well. So it violates the whole code of like FIFA and all that in soccer, but bad leaders perpetuate bad leaders, right? So someone's got to break the cycle. Someone's got to say, hey, you need to read a leadership book. That is not the way to treat, your employees. That's not the way to treat your team members. So good, great summaries all around. I was just curious. I was in here a couple minutes early the other day, and I just looked on JSTOR. I put in collaborative leadership, and this is interesting mainly for the first hour students, but the second article that came up was Design Thinking Accelerated Leadership, Transforming Self, Transforming Community. I sent that over to Jeff and Carlos, and they're using it because I told them how, in the academic world, when you pull up a journal article, like a peer-reviewed journal article, it goes from being like, oh, that's a nice article, to, oh, this is like, we can actually quote this, we can use this. And so they're using that as part of as they share with more organizations and stuff. So excellent. Okay, so we have this. Thank you for doing that. Those that aren't here will get caught up on that. But so we have this book right here. Between now and the end of the semester, we need to do. There's still a little bit left in the beyond team building as well, but this for sure. This is the first. I'll just give you the breakdown. The first 150 pages are the story, right? The fable. And these are like short pages. This is really easy. And then the model is the next 50 pages, basically. So you got 150 and 50. We have to have a way of analyzing this book. And in some ways, it'd just be so easy to say, just do a book report, because you got the time, and some of you are more wired to like, let me read it, write it up. What I don't want to do is create a class project that is a big pain where one person does all the work and everyone else watches, right? So we know that can happen. What we need is something kind of in between. So here are the guidelines I'd like to come up with. I want to hear your thoughts. I'd like to do something that breaks down and analyzes this book thoroughly. That is something that could be presented, right? So it's something when we all come together, it could even be over a couple class periods, a couple Fridays, which I think we only have 4 left, where we present different parts of it. It has to have like an application aspect to it. So not only, this is what Patrick Lencioni says about the ideal team player, but here's a real world application. It has to be something we can share. So I'd like to turn it into a class video so I can share it, because that's sometimes I'll get potential students that are like, well, what are your classes like? For other classes where we did little presentations, whatever, if there was a video that went like it, I usually share that. And I'd like it to not be a traditional book report. So what I don't know is what that's going to look like. I mean, we could divide up the book into little pieces and each person does their little piece. Or we could break the book down into, you basically have three characteristics of an ideal team player. And then you have like 3, like if you only have 2 of the characteristics, what is that? What kind of person is that? And so, I mean, we could literally have different people present different parts of that. We could act out part of it. I know me and Alyssa love musicals. We could use a musical. You missed it, Katie. We were talking. We were trying to buy you some time so you didn't have to drive so fast. And the musical discussion was so we could do this as a musical. So I don't want to be so clever that I end up telling you guys. But the class has been a little light on assignments, right? So I'd like to finish strong. And the thing is, it's great. Like if you only read those 50 pages, it's awesome. The story is good too, because it kind of helps drive the point home. But the application, the model and the application is really important. So I'd like to do something where everyone's involved. What we could do is a hybrid. You could do like a little mini book report of just the model. And then we could come up with a way to, different people could be assigned to just talk about their little piece of the application. That I could go back and divide it up into, I think we have 8 people in the class. I come up with like 8 different pieces, and you not only you write like a little mini book report, but then you have to drill down on your one, micro application, and you present that. So, what do you guys think?
I feel like personally I'd rather do something like more interactive, like in class, because I feel like we've been doing a lot of like hybrid, obviously, because we all have different schedules.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like if we did that, it would just kind of be like what we've already been doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a way to make it more like interactive and collaborative, like, in person.
What if we gave like a deadline, like you had to read at least the 50 pages of the model by next Friday, but then in class, you guys could work out, so how are we gonna break this down and present the little pieces and then work together even in class time, deciding who's gonna do what. And then the next week, if you need a little more time to work together on that, and then present in the last 2 weeks, present it. It has been a weird semester with this class. I've not really ever done, frankly, I'm not even a college professor very long. You guys have been students longer than I'm a professor. But that being said, I've never done a hybrid class like this before. Definitely helps meet the need for schedule. I don't know if it really is my favorite way because there's just no time together. But it's okay. All right. Plus, I was out sick for like what would have been a couple of class periods. Any comments? Any thoughts on this? Yeah. What if we did so since there's like 3 main pieces of this. There are 3 characteristics, and then there's probably a general overview. So that'd be four pieces of this. What if I divided everyone up? Everyone comes together, divide up into little groups of 2 where you decide how do you want to present your one piece, and you can use class time the next 2 Fridays, work on that. There's also, I mean, so everyone is in Leadership Toolbox with me in the summertime. Well, you guys weren't, Joe was. We watched a short Patrick Lencioni video on the ideal team player. Did we watch that in the Toolbox class last spring also maybe? So there's like a 15-minute video of him breaking down the main points of this book. So it's there's tons of stuff out there where it'd be very easy to, you can skim the book and you can get the content from other places too. I don't care. So maybe that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to put out the assignment to read. I'd like you to read the whole book, but I also know at this point in the semester, 220 more pages of reading might not be, I drop down on your list from towards the top, towards the bottom. So maybe what I'll do is I'll assign the model aspect of this to read before next Friday. That'll be number 1. That'll be graded based on did you read it or not. Then in class, I'll have probably 4 parts divided up, and we'll split you guys up somehow, some way, and you will come up with a creative way to present your part. And I'll give you Friday's class and the following Friday's class. You might have to work a little bit outside of class to pull it all together, because there probably needs to be a visual aspect to it, and there needs to be a talking aspect to it. So, and then the final would be, we would be presenting these and then talking about it. And what I would probably do, so that there's plenty of time to talk, is only have like 2 pieces presented in 3 weeks or whatever, and spend the rest of class talking about it. And then the next week, 2 pieces presented, talk about it some more. So we get it all, enjoy it. Yeah.
I'm looking at the calendar, and I think we might only have 3 Fridays after this.
Boy. All right, let's look. Oh, that's right. It's November. What about because you guys would have the same conflicts, because Monday the 23rd, right? We only have 3. Okay, well, we might have to do them all in one class period then, but with 4 pieces and 40 minutes, we do 10 minutes each. I think we still get it done. Okay, all right. I'm glad you said that. That helps. What I might do is break it down just into 3 and have a couple groups might have 3 people, a couple groups might have 2 people, and just do the 3 main points. And then we have like 15 minutes per presentation. I'll take a look at it. I'll put an announcement or discussion out in Canvas for this class today. All right, so that you can have plenty of notice. But if you haven't got the book yet, get it. The audiobook is really good. It's so easy to listen to as far as the way they read these books. And I believe even if you listen at regular speed, it's only 2.5 hours. If you listen at 1.4, 1.5 speed, it's like an hour, 10 minutes. It's really good. Okay. And if you want, you can subsidize your learning by watching the video, Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni, which will give you the synopsis of it too. But you do have to actually read, like your eyes need to be on the paper, like, oh, I read this stuff. And all I'm going to ask is, did you read it or not? So I don't usually like asking that question, but since it's pertinent to making sure we're all at the same level next Friday, I am going to ask that. Okay. All right. That's it. See you guys later. Have a good weekend. Enjoy Vegas night.